Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, joined by Anthony and JT, and we had a brief pre-show meeting. I can tell you that what you're about to see is completely unscripted, but JT, it's Friday night. How would you summarize the last week of college football?
Refreshing. Just good to have college football back. I mean, just all the games, soak them in. And there were really good games in week one. Notre Dame and Miami, Clemson and LSU. All of my expectations were exceeded, and it's just good to be back.
It is good to be back. Anthony, what stood out from you last week for college football?
I think, these high profile matchups, it just felt like defense won in pretty much all of them. The Texas Ohio State, the Buckeyes defense just put on a clinic. The LSU defense really stepping up and shutting down essentially Cade Klubnik and the Clemson offense. The Notre Dame Miami, Ruben Bain was just wrecking the Fighting Irish in that fourth quarter. So it really felt, which it's not necessarily a surprise, but I think defense really proved like they were more prepared for week one as a whole. And some of these offenses that we might have had high expectations for maybe didn't live up quite to where we thought they'd be. But obviously there's a whole season left of college football for them to get it together.
Yeah, especially the quarterbacks left us wanting more between Clemson and LSU and Texas and all these returning faces and high-profile new faces. Between those three teams, they scored 28 total points? That's 31 total points? That's not great.
Yeah.
So I've got a chance to see a few different games. The TCU North Carolina game on Monday night, I enjoyed, even though TCU was like laying the hammer on North Carolina. There was a part of me that was just enjoying watching Belichick. Part of that joy was watching Belichick lose. But then part of that joy was there were players in TCU that were draft eligible that were popping off the page or popping off the screen. And I hadn't heard anybody talking about them. So, you go to the draft professor chat, say, okay, what do you have on this player, this player, this player? People are starting to fill in the blanks, but they still didn't have much on them. So I'm definitely looking forward to hearing more about TCU and some of the players there. And we have a pretty good game. This is probably the second or third best game of the week for draft eligible players. And that's Iowa against Iowa State. JT, who is your highest ranked player in this game?
Right now, we were talking, we both like a lot of defensive prospects. Right here today, and I think it's between two, but I'm going to stick to my guy with Iowa's right tackle with Jennings Dunker. And I don't know that he's an NFL tackle. I think he might be a little short-armed. I think he can get pushed around at times. But he is so incredibly mobile. I really, really think he can transition to guard seamlessly and thrive in a Shanahan-style, get you moving left to right kind of offense. And, just watching him play, he reminds me so much of Domonique Pooney from 2 years ago. And I think he's a plus version of that. I think he'll be even better. But I think he has the power when he, can utilize it with his arms, just being able to control someone's chest and move them around. Just got to make up for that lack of length. He can get bullied because of it, and I think moving inside will mitigate that. But I think he can be an absolute plus guard, Pro Bowl level guard at the next level. So right now, he's my top guy. But there was one other guy who I think is very close to him, who this was my first time around watching him, who I think we'll get into a little later, who's very, very close.
Okay. So Anthony, Jennings Dunker, is that the correct way to pronounce his first name?
Yep. Yeah.
So where do you have him, tackle or guard, and how high is he on your board?
So I think he's definitely a guard. JT talked about it. The arm length just isn't there, and I'm a little lower on him. I have him like fringe day 2 to early day 3 as a guard prospect, and it kind of just comes down to I'm just not convinced he's an NFL or a top end NFL athlete, even if he does kick inside. And between that and the length issues that JT talked about, I'm not like, I know some people are like super into him. I'm not quite there, but I do like him as a potential starting guard in the NFL. It's probably between him and Logan Jones, the Iowa center, for best offensive lineman, I would say, in this game as a whole. And Iowa's been producing NFL offensive linemen for years. The Dunker and Logan Jones are the 2 Iowa offensive linemen I would be watching for in this game.
And then in the game, as I'm looking at the position list, Dunker is playing tackle for Iowa. We're saying from a draft perspective, we see him as a guard, even though his college position is tackle, correct?
Correct. Yeah, he'll play right tackle, especially Iowa. They are a run first downhill team, so they're more okay with having a tackle with shorter arms because you're not dealing with NFL athletes every given week. But yeah, at the next level, the arm length won't hold up. He has to kick inside, I think.
Yep. So JT, I definitely want to give you kudos because you threw me for a curve. I was not expecting you to say Dunker. In my head, I had it as one of 3 players, but like you fooled the moderator because it wasn't any, like your top player wasn't any of the 3 that I was going to guess. Anthony, who is your highest rated player in the Iowa State game?
For me, there is no contest. He's the man known as Big Citrus. Domonique Orange, the Iowa State defensive tackle. He was 14 on my board coming into the year, after my summer scouting, and he just wreaked havoc for the past couple weeks. Kicked ass in the Kansas State game. He's just so dominant on the interior. He's massive. He's 6'4", 325 pounds, but he moves like a guy that's 20, 30 pounds lighter. But he fills gaps so well. He stuffs the run, but he flashes just like a little bit of pass rush potentially. I don't think he's going to be like an elite pass rusher at the next level by any means, but it'll be enough to where like you can play him 3 downs and feel good about it. You won't feel like you're a liability with your interior pass rush with him. But yeah, man, he just definition of a game wrecker. He's so good. He's so good. And I mean, the name's Big Citrus. Like that alone is a first round caliber nickname if I've ever heard it. So yeah. And I just talked about like, Logan Jones, the Iowa center, and Gennings Dunker, at right tackle, but like that's going to be the matchup for me that defines the game. And both of those guys, however the game goes, like their draft stock, I think will be greatly impacted by this game.
JT, where are you on Big Citrus?
Yeah, he was definitely my other one. Like those 2 for me, they are the standouts for this game. And I don't know that, I forgot his actual name because I refer to him in Big Citrus in my head. Domonique Orange. Yeah. I don't know if he's going to test like an elite athlete, but I'll say this. He's an elite phone booth athlete. Like in that short area where you need him to dominate, he dominates. And then you get him, into space, moving left to right. He gets a little questionable, but if you just have him attack the line of scrimmage, look out, it's over. The dude is a monster. And yeah, the size, great. The power, great. He plays with incredibly good leverage for a guy who's 6'4". Like every time I looked at him, he's like a head lower than whoever he's going against, which only adds to his power. And he was just awesome to watch. Like this was my first review for him, and he blew me away. So I don't know where I project him in the NFL. If I project him as a nose tackle in a 4-3, because he has all the power and strength that he's really good at. But I also think his hands are so very active, he could kind of take a Liam McNeil route and kind of be a 3-tech. Like he's athletic enough, he's explosive enough, his hands aren't always effective because he might be a little bit short arm too, but he uses them constantly. If the move doesn't work, he'll slap you with another move. And if that doesn't work, he'll slap you with another move. And he'll just keep fighting with them. And sometimes he'll put you in a blender and you see it. It flashes. It's there. So I think whether he's a nose tackle or whether he's a like big run stuffing 3-tech with pass rush upside, I really, really like him.
So, question, Anthony. Domonique Orange, is he defensive tackle 2 behind Woods for you?
No, he's 3 behind Woods and Caleb Banks.
Okay.
But all 3 of them are just freaks of nature in their own respective ways. I'm a big fan. They're like the top 3, and then there's like a drop off. Like for me, like
and that was actually going to be my follow-up question. Is where is the drop-off at defensive tackle? So you have Orange closer to Woods than you do the tier underneath them.
Yeah, I would say for me, I think Woods and Banks are they're the standard. Woods is above Banks, but it's close. And then like Orange is like a half step down, but he's like nipping on the heels. And again, especially after I think he's started off this season great. And then I think there's like a pretty like a full step down to the next guy. Okay. Christian Miller out of Georgia would be my next one. But like I think there is a little more of a significant drop, not huge, but more than those 3.
So JT, how far have you gotten into the defensive tackle class so far?
Really just the SEC for our pod 2 weeks ago when we broke down SEC defensive tackles.
Got it. So that would be Caleb Banks, but not Peter Woods.
And right? I've watched Peter Woods and, a little bit, and just not like a formal sit down on him. He's really impressive.
Okay. So, and then I guess a really good question would be Logan Jones from Iowa will be lined up against Domonique Orange from Iowa State. So Logan Jones, correct me if I'm wrong, JT, but Logan Jones is an undersized center, correct?
Yeah, let me pull up his measurements real quick. He is 6'3", 302 listed. That's on our lads.
Oh, so that's actually heavier than I was expecting.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. He clears that 300.
293. I've seen 293 listed too. I think he teeters on that, like either right under 300 or like right around 300 number. But he's definitely on the leaner side, I would say, of interior offensive guys.
So who do you think has more to gain with their draft stock between Orange and Jones in this game?
I mean, I think it would be Jones, just because Orange, I think everyone agrees, he looks really good. So if Jones can go toe-to-toe with him, I mean, they're nose-to-nose going to be most of the game. If he can neutralize Big Citrus, like, that's kind of your welcome to the conversation moment. That's, you are now on the national radar. And, if Orange has a big game, it's like, great, this guy's really good. We knew he'd have a big game. It's Big Citrus. What do you expect? But if Jones does, it's like, yo, we got to look at this guy. This guy might be a player here.
Okay. So where are you, JT, on Logan Jones right now as a prospect? Like day 2, day 3, how high do you have?
Probably day 3. I was kind of lukewarm on him watching his tape. I think outside of Dunker, the rest of the offensive line had moments, but they also had moments that left me watching more each of them. So I'm probably day 3. I thought sometimes he looked like he was doing really well getting into space, but sometimes I thought he could use a little more oomph in his game. He kind of got shucked off a couple of blocks I thought he should have finished. So it's to be determined on where he'll land for me, because I don't do traditional draft grades and draft by rounds or type of players. So I'll have a better idea of it once I do like a full deep dive into the entire offensive line class. But he is someone who left me wanting a little bit more.
So Anthony, how about you? How does Logan Jones stack up for you?
Yeah, pretty similar to JT. I have him as an early day 3 guy also. I think he's athletic as hell. I think he moves well for an interior offensive lineman. I think he was on the Feldman's freak list because he has like crazy squat and bench press numbers, all that stuff. And I think he also had a very impressive shuttle time as well. So you see that in his game, like, again, very athletic, moves well. I think the biggest thing, which JT touched on, was like he just doesn't have top end strength for an interior offensive lineman. He gets pushed and pulled a lot, and like badly. And we talked about it. Like he weighs either low 300 or like high 290s or somewhere like that. It might even be less than that. And it shows. Like he just doesn't. He can get knocked off his spot too easily. So I think and to your point earlier about, who has the most to gain, if Logan Jones comes out tomorrow and is able to, like, he doesn't even have to like dominate Orange. Like if he just holds his own and doesn't get pushed around and doesn't get, run over and whooped by Big Citrus for the whole game. Like if he shows he has the strength to hold up against somebody who's 30 pounds heavier than him, then that is a huge benefit to him. That'll put him probably in the top 100 conversation. Cause yeah, I think it's pretty universal that Orange is at least like a top 50 player for most people. I have him higher, but everybody is pretty sold on him at this point. So Logan Jones has a lot to gain. I'm nervous that a lot of his weaknesses will show up tomorrow going against a guy like Orange.
And do we think it's safe to say that Logan Jones, this will be the best defensive tackle he's going to play all season? Like he's not going to play Caleb Banks. Right, because Iowa's not playing Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to double check the schedule quick.
But then we have to ask, does Iowa play Clemson again? I don't think so.
Yeah, it's just Big Ten teams at this point, really. So yeah, they're not, and they don't even play. Like they don't play Ohio State. If you're a Zane Durant fan, I guess.
Yep.
Him. I don't have him that high. So yeah, the Orange is probably the best defensive tackle that he's going to see this year. So this is a big moment for him probably.
And he's the kind of player who you can answer questions with, where Durant's a little bit smaller himself. This is the kind of guy who, if you're concerned about the size and the strength and that kind of thing, well, here's the opportunity to prove it.
Right.
Okay. So we've covered Domonique Orange. We've covered Gennings Dunker. We've covered Logan Jones. JT, who's your next highest graded player playing in the Iowa State game?
I was really interested in one of their linebackers, Caleb Bacon. And I really like him as a Sam linebacker when you got him attacking forward. I think he's probably a day 3 guy. I like him in a role the way the Lions use Derek Barnes, where you just have him attack. You don't have him drop into coverage. You don't have him do too much. You take on the block. You get into the backfield. As long as he's moving forward, I think he's a really interesting player who's got some speed to work with. He's got good size. He's listed, I think, at 6'3" or 6'4" and 240. So he was someone who the things he did well, I liked, and I can see a role for him. He'd be a good special teams player because, again, that's a position where you attack. I thought he moved fairly well when he could get into coverage. He just looked kind of lost in coverage, and it was kind of awkward, and he almost looked confused. It didn't look like a physical thing necessarily, but I just didn't look like he had any idea what he was doing. So that was very off-putting in terms of his overall draft profile. But if you were just looking for a niche player who fills a specific role and you need that player, I like what he does for that role on day 3.
Okay. Anthony, did you have a chance to watch the linebacker?
I've watched him because I watched the Iowa State Kansas State game, and then I watched it back again. So I saw him in that game, and I feel like I remember he felt just kind of not particularly special in terms of being like a true really good athlete, like an NFL athlete. And I don't remember him particularly standing out in any way. So I would have to I'd have to go back and like really deep dive, but he didn't strike me as somebody that I think would be any more than probably like a day 3 guy.
So Anthony, who is your next highest rated player that we haven't spoke about yet?
So my next one is also Iowa State. It's Jontez Williams, the cornerback. He's played very well, as has really the whole Cyclones secondary. But he is one of the best in terms of just like being physical for a cornerback. He's 5'11", 200, which isn't, it's not the biggest corner in the world. But he is not afraid to come downhill, hit a running back or hit a ball carrier. He tackles well. There are times it can be a little inconsistent, but overall, I think he tackles well for a corner. He also has good ball skills, good understanding of, where to be at a certain point and where to position himself to be able to make plays on the ball. Just a smart, quality defender. We've seen Iowa State churning out quarterbacks. Darian Porter last year. TJ Tampa, I think, was 2-3 years ago. So they know how to coach up cornerbacks and secondary players. And I think Jontez is the next one in that crop. He's for me, he's like a day 2, probably like later day 2 kind of player. But I think he's a guy that can be a good pro. I think he also gives you that versatility to play inside or outside in your secondary. So that's a benefit as well. But yeah, Jontez Williams is a good quality player, I'd say.
JT, what did you have on Jontez Williams?
Yeah, I think I saw a lot of the same things. He definitely had some flashes where he came in and helped finish a tackle, and I agree. He doesn't seem like he's afraid of being physical. But I did see a couple of missed tackles, which if you're going to be short and kind of thick, you got to make your tackles, especially if you're someone who projects as a nickel, which I don't know that he's limited to that. I'd have to watch more of him. But yeah, I definitely see the flashes, but the inconsistency. So I think more resume he puts out this year, if he continues to show those flashes, become more consistent, it's a game 1. This is their first game with contact. It's their first real game of the year. You've still got a couple of bit of rust, a couple of bad habits. If he can round out and sustain those flashes, I think he can be a promising player.
And then, JT, who is your next highest rated player between Iowa and Iowa State.
One guy who stood out to me, let me find, was Aaron Graves on Iowa's defensive line. He is good length, 6'5", about 300 pounds, and they have him listed as a nose tackle. I think the game I watched, he was playing along the edge. But he made some flashes. I don't know that he was super productive last year, but I think he's someone who has potential to be a kind of a 5-tech, like a 3-4 defensive end. I thought he held himself well against the run. I really like his profile with the length he has, and he was very active. So I think I need to see more from him. I do think he's been productive over his career. Let me pull up what I had on him.
I like that you brought him up. There's one draft professor that has Graves in their top 50.
In the top 50, wow. I don't know if I put him that high, but I can see where you would like him.
I think the summary of like what you said, like he's a likable player, especially if he can like hold up against the run inside. But I'll let you go through the rest of I was filibustering while you had to look up what you were looking at.
I appreciate it. So last year he actually had 6 sacks and 8 tackles for loss. So more productive than I had in my head. The year before that, 2.5 sacks. The year before that, 3 sacks. So the only thing is some of those sacks came in bunches against some lesser competition. I'd like to see him sustain that against some higher competition. But when he flashed, his flashes looked really nice. It's just, can you do that against NFL caliber players? And we'll see. I'd really like to go back and watch him versus like Ohio State or Oregon or one of those big time teams. Which actually Ohio State might have been one of the games I watched. But I want to see as much resume as I can on him against good competition, because I know 2 of those 6 sacks came against like Division II, like Utah Tech or some random team. But yeah, I liked what I saw. I just want to see more of it.
So Anthony, how about you? Aaron Graves, defensive tackle from Iowa. What did you see?
Yeah, so Graves is my next highest ranked player as well for in this game. Yeah, I echo what JT said. I think he's really feels like a true like 3-tech, really quick on the inside. I saw a really good rip and swim move that he uses. He pursues really well. He has really good speed for for being 300 pounds. It is just the lack of strength on the inside. There were times where he just loses leverage, against the run, against run blockers. He gets just off balance really badly, and then he can miss tackles, loses gap integrity, gets moved off his spot. Like, it's just a lot of bad things can pile up because it just doesn't feel like he has that natural power that you kind of need to have, and not even in the NFL, just like in the Big Ten. So this is an opportunity. He's not. I don't think he's really going to be going against NFL players tomorrow when it comes to the offensive lineman that Iowa State has. But it's still a Power 4 program. So if he can have a big game tomorrow, that'll kind of put him on more people's radars. He's in my top 75, I think. So I'm not even like that far off from wouldn't be my top 50, but like it's reasonable, I think. If you buy into, again, just like the quickness and the athleticism that he has. And honestly, it's kind of a similar story because I'll just go. My next player is Max Llewellyn, the edge rusher.
There we go.
Who's going to be playing right next to him. And similar to Graves, like Llewellyn looks the part of an NFL pass rusher. I like his frame and his muscle. His spin move is ridiculous. If you haven't seen it, just like go to X or to YouTube or whatever. And I'm sure if you search Max Llewellyn spin, you'll find probably a draft professor. Probably
I think that's the sucker for Bill Sparks, right? Bill Sparks likes an edge with a spin move.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? When it's good, it's good. So I can't even like be mad at it. And Llewellyn, because Llewellyn doesn't have like he is raw as a pass rusher. I would say, which sounds odd because he is a 5th-year senior. But I do think he needs to refine more of his pass rush tools and his pass rush moveset as a whole. But like again, the flashes of his spin move when he like gets it right it's lethal. There's no you don't have an answer for it. So I think he, like I said, he looks the part. I think he has good burst and quickness as well. It's really just for him. I think it's refining his skill set and just being more productive as a whole. He hasn't really been like a true 3-down pass rusher on Iowa so far in his career. So now, are we going to see that? Is he going to have that opportunity? And then is he going to be able to expand that production? Time will tell. Again, similar to Graves, this is an opportunity where the offensive line is not the strong suit of this Iowa State team, in my opinion. So he and Graves should be productive. I think these are both guys that can go, at least in the top 100. So, like, they should be able to have productive games tomorrow. And if they do, great. And if not, that's going to raise some concerns for me.
And then, JT, where are you on Max Llewellyn, the edge from Iowa?
I am actually nowhere on Max Llewellyn. He's not someone I made notes of. He wasn't someone who popped to me specifically. I remember watching 48 on the defensive line because I love watching ugly numbers play. So I do like that about him. But looking at him now, just a follow-up question for Anthony. Where do you project him in the NFL? Because I see 2 different listings on his weight. One is 235 and one is 260. So I that's a pretty big gap one, and maybe not a traditionally sized defensive lineman. So do you see him as more of like an edge guy, like a Robert Mathis with a 6 spin move? Is that his ideal projection, or where do you profile him?
So yeah, I have 258 as his weight. So I definitely think he's an edge guy, and he's a hand in the dirt because he's 6'5", 258. So like this is a big, again, like hand in the dirt, 4'3" defensive end, I would say. I will say too, like I don't think he's the best run defender when it comes to like setting an edge and being able to, identify run plays and then cover the gaps. So that would be concern. He probably is more of a DPR at this stage, which again kind of goes back to I want to see if you are going to be a DPR, that's fine, but I kind of need you to be like a really good pass rusher if you're going to do that. And I don't think he's quite there. Like kind of like a David Bailey, for example, I think is an exceptional pass rusher. So he is able to be a DPR in the next level, and I think he can do it well. I don't think Llewellyn's quite there, but I can see the path to getting there. Because like I said, he looks the part. He has the tools. He just needs to kind of elevate and step up this year. But yeah, he definitely is a 4-3 pass rushing defensive end.
Okay, JT, who in this game that we haven't talked about yet could show you the most and say, like, he would either be like a my guy or you would move him up based upon, like, he needs to stand out? And anybody else on the player list that you want to talk about?
I think the only two my guys are Orange and Dunker. But one guy who popped a couple of times who I really want to see, another one. A lot of the guys who aren't those two guys I thought showed flashes, but I want to see more from them, more consistency, sustained flashes. One guy who was one of those guys who flashed a couple of times was Iowa State cornerback Jeremiah Cooper. And he's someone, he has decent size. He's 6 foot. He's 195, 200 is what I see him listed as. And he's someone who he was a little bit inconsistent, kind of like we talked about the other Iowa State corner. I thought he could have cleaned up some tackles at times. I thought he was out of position, but there were other times where I thought he looked sticky in coverage and he made plays to be disruptive. He looks like he moved really well. I think he looked like a NFL caliber athlete when I was watching him. But it was just flashes at times. It's something I want more of, and I need to see more of before I be saying, hey, this is a guy who, needs to be on radars. He's a guy who is going to be shooting up draft boards. But he was also someone I saw some flashes of ability, so he could be in that conversation later on down the line. So he's someone who I'm going to be watching when I'm watching this Iowa State team in the future. Number 4, someone I'll have my eye on.
So, Anthony, any comments on Cooper or any other player that's in this game that you think deserves a shout-out?
Yes, I think Cooper's a good call-out. The big thing with Cooper, for me, is he has played primarily nickel corner his entire career with the Cyclones. And now this season, he has been an outside corner opposite John Tez Williams. So that transition, it seems like has had mixed results, I'd say. I think he's played overall well, but also they haven't really, Kansas State, sure, but then they played South Dakota, so he hasn't really been tested on the outside. I thought he was a pretty decent nickel corner for Iowa State last year. But obviously they feel that he can play outside, so we'll see how that sort of pans out as the season goes. But I do think he's a good player and could certainly be in the draft conversation as well.
Just following up on what you just said, looking at his stats, which I didn't do until just now, he had 5 interceptions in 23 and 2 last year. So it does seem like he was really productive in that role. I did not realize he was transitioning to the outside. So, that could be part of his inconsistencies.
Yeah. It's certainly not, it's not a simple transition just to go from nickel, consistently nickel. It wasn't even like he kind of went, in and out. He was big time nickel guy. He had almost 400 snaps there. Now he's been all outside corner this season. So, like I said, we'll see how that goes. I feel like we kind of have to mention the quarterbacks as much as I don't think they're particularly, I don't think either's a first round talent. But, Rocco Becht for Iowa State has played very well to start the season, especially in the Kansas State game. He showed, really command and playmaking ability and led that team to, he made big plays in big moments. And that's kind of just been his identity is, he doesn't have the biggest arm. He's not an elite athlete. He doesn't really scream NFL quarterback when you look at him and you watch him play, but he gets the job done and he does well. And I think he, it's a little bit of a helmet scout kind of thing, but he warrants those Brock Purdy-esque kind of comparisons where it's nothing really feels elite about him, but the dude just makes plays when he has to make plays. And at the end of the day, that's what every quarterback's trying to do. So and Gronowski for Iowa is kind of in the same boat where I don't think he is particularly special in terms of, his arm talent or, his athleticism. Again, these both feel like day 3 at best guys if they even get drafted. But I'll leave the window open where if one of them balls out, and then continues to ball out in their respective Power Four conferences, they could potentially rise up to, the top of day 3, I guess. I just don't see a world where they have the elite tools and traits that you look for that would warrant a top 100 pick for a quarterback. But they're worth watching for sure, I would say.
So, JT, where are you on the quarterbacks in the Iowa State game?
So I already had some preconceived opinions about Becht coming into it, so I didn't really spend a lot of time watching him in any of the games I watched because I just didn't view him as an NFL quarterback prospect. I'll probably come around and get to him eventually, but I wanted to spend, if we're being honest, you don't watch Iowa or Iowa State for quarterbacks. You start in the trenches and you work your way to more physical positions, especially if I already know I'm not in love with one as a prospect. I'm more interested in Mark Gronowski, but Iowa's playing Albany week 1, and I don't know how much you can take away from a game like that. So I'm interested to watch him this game, but I don't see Becht as an NFL starting quarterback. So I think there's some tools there to work with in terms of running ability. I think he's just kind of a lunch pail guy who can maybe carve out a role in the NFL, and I just don't see an abundance of NFL talent in terms of the quarterback play.
Okay. Any other players in the game that either of you want to take? Like, are they any other names that are podcast worthy? We have some time. Anybody else saying? Go ahead.
I don't think nothing too crazy. I would throw out Benjamin Brahmer, the tight end for Iowa State. He's sort of your stereotypical big contested catch red zone guy. 6'7", 255. So I think his role is pretty carved out, and I don't think he's. I think he's not really that fast, not really a separator kind of guy. But in the NFL, if again, big body target that can help you in the red zone, Brahmer could be that, and he's also a good blocker. So that's potentially somebody. Again, it's probably like day 3 guy. Other than that, I don't think there's anybody that needs to be mentioned necessarily.
I do want to shout out Brahmer because Max Toscano identified Brahmer as one of the 8 best blocking tight ends in the draft.
Yeah.
So there's a theory that you're going to be hearing a lot on Draft Professor this draft cycle, and that's tight ends that can block in line. So if they have the ability to block, they should be rated higher than a pass-catching only tight end, unless the pass-catching only tight end is elite. Right? Because if you're comparing a pass-catching tight end that can't block, you need to compare them to a slot wide receiver. And that's a theory that Max Toscano has, and we will be podcasting on that a lot more come the middle to end of October. JT, anybody else in this game that you watched and you want to comment that you either at least watched them and saw something or that you think deserves mention?
There was one guy, but he's not draft eligible. But he popped a couple of times. I'm really excited to continue to watch him. That was Iowa State safety Carson Van Dinter. I thought he had a lot of flashes, more than some of these other guys even we've talked about. But that's just a name to kind of put on the radar for down the line. He's one I'm going to be interested in the next couple of years to come.
See, I love it. We're doing a game prep. We're already scouting for the next draft cycle. Absolutely love it. Anthony, anybody else, or do we want to change?
I'll throw out a non-draft eligible player, but somebody that down the road I think we're going to be talking about. Xavier Williams, the redshirt freshman running back for Iowa. Obviously, they played Albany, so take that with the put that caveat on this. But he had 11 carries for 122 yards last week, and really another guy that just looks the part. He's 5'11", 225, I think he is. So, sort of similar to Caleb Johnson. Caleb Johnson was taller, but similar, just has the size, athleticism profile that you like to see in an potential NFL running back. And he looked like he had a good combination of speed and power in his game. So I am excited to, we'll see what he does tomorrow and this season. It feels a bit like a committee for Iowa, and it kind of maybe just felt like he got the hot hand in their game against Albany, but he's somebody I'm going to be intrigued by when he technically is eligible next year. So, worth watching now, I guess.
So, JT, you want to introduce yourself to everybody watching and let them know about all the draft content that you do?
Sure. You can follow me on Twitter at IcewaterOlson. You can find me here at Draft Professors every Friday night at 9:15. I'm going to be holding down this time slot for the foreseeable future. All my written content is Buccaneers focused, so you can find me at bucksreport.com. I will do a lot of very Bucs-centric draft coverage when that time rolls around. And you can find my podcast, the Creamsicle Chronicles podcast, Wednesday nights at 9:30 with fellow draft professor Andrew Harbaugh.
Awesome. It's really cool to see that you've hooked up with Andrew, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Anthony.
Yeah. You can find me on X at Anthony_Russo97. I've got my Substack. I'm posting all sorts of draft / college football / NFL content there. So you can subscribe for all that good stuff. And I'm going to be here Friday nights and Saturday afternoon / evening, whatever you classify 5:30 as. Tomorrow we're going to be doing kind of like a college football reaction / preview / mixed bag of college football stuff.
I think we could call it like draft game day or something like that.
Yeah. Something we'll be talking about, whose stock has risen so far in the games that have happened, who has a chance to raise their stock in the later games, what we saw in the games that stood out to us, a bunch of good draft stuff in the heat of Saturday game day. So it's going to be a good time, and Jacob Roach will be there. So that'll be a good time for sure.
Cool. So I want to thank Anthony and JT for helping with tonight's podcast. So Draft Professor has 24 people just like Anthony and JT that show up once a week, and we get daily draft content. So if you like this content and you like learning about the players in the draft, one college football game at a time, you will love the month of September. So every day in the month of September, Monday through Friday, we're previewing 2 college football games each day. And we'll tell you about the draft eligible players, and you'll get a breakdown really similar to what Anthony and JT gave you here. So if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe. Please and thank you. That's the best thank you can give if you like this content. That being said, JT, based upon your experience evaluating draft prospects, if I gave you 5.5 as the over-under for the number of players that are drafted between Iowa and Iowa State, 5.5, you're going to take the over or the under?
That's a really good number, I think. I'll take the over because I think there's a lot of draft eligible secondary players, and the NFL is always looking to add more bodies in the secondary. Obviously, some really good trench players in this game, so I'll take the over on that.
Anthony, 5.5. Number of players drafted between Iowa and Iowa State.
Oh, I smashed the over. Easy. I mean, just alone, Big Citrus, Graves, Llewellyn, Jontez Williams. That's 4. Logan Jones is 5.
Did you hit Dunker?
Dunker, yep. Dunker is going to probably get drafted. Brahmer, we talked about, I think has a good chance. And maybe like Rocco Becht sneaks in there late day 3. So yeah, I would take the over and feel pretty good about it.
JT, I'd like it when I pick a number and you're like, I hit it like right there in your head. So I'm learning that I have a gift to do this because I ask that question on every podcast, and at least one of the people say, wow, that was a good number. Like, I'm not sure where I am, like on that, whatever the line is that I come up with. This week, I think the second most draft eligible players are playing in Iowa State, as long as you don't count like Ohio State and whoever they play, or Georgia and whoever they play. All the draft eligibles are on a single team. This is a game where the draft eligibles are probably split almost evenly across the two teams. Mm-hmm. And Michigan-Oklahoma is the only game that's bigger as far as the draft goes this week. And that's also a bigger game in college football. I think Oklahoma, Michigan, I think both teams are in the top 15. Is either Iowa or Iowa State ranked?
Iowa State is. Yeah.
So, okay, well, we are going to close the podcast down. For the 91 podcasters at the Draft Professor, for JT, for Anthony, for myself, we will see you on a podcast again tomorrow, 5:30, college, what do we call it? Draft game day. There we go.
There you go.
Draft game day tomorrow at 5:30. We'll see you then, everybody. Thank you.